Hello and welcome back. Today we're going to try something a bit different. I don't know if you've heard about this, but in the last couple of weeks, GitHub have released this coding agent, or rather, coding agent, not to be confused with agent mode. So agent mode is, I guess, like the way you can autonomously, or you can tell the agent to build things, similar to cursor agents, if you've ever used that. But this new feature is coding agent, which the main difference is it's asynchronous. So think of it more like a AI developer, which I guess on a side note is another nail in the coffin for junior developer roles. But anyway, we won't touch that too much. But the agent mode is what you're maybe familiar with already. The new thing is the coding agent. So yeah, to reiterate, agent mode is synchronous, works inside VS Code. The coding agent is asynchronous and runs via GitHub Actions on, for example, github.com. So we're going to try that. We're going to add a feature to Prompt Frenzy, which if you watched my last video, this is a vibe coded app we built in V0 and Cursor and deployed on Vercel. The feature we're going to add is this. We're going to expand a little bit on this idea of prompting an image in something like ChatGPT. So this is a good example because you always have a source image and then it does some stuff and you get an output image. So there's like a before and after image. So I think it would be cool to have like a slider of the before and after. You've probably seen this like JavaScript effect before where you have this slider that you can drag across. Right now, there's just one image URL that we're using in the database. It's a Superbase database, and I think I can show you that now. I'm using Superbase simply because it's pretty easy to get started, especially when you're using V0. And we used V0 for the start of this. So yeah, it's just a really nice way of visualizing stuff and getting started. Also has authentication built in. So that's why we're using that. But yeah, if we're updating this and adding this feature, then we're almost certainly going to need to make a database change. And I'm hoping that we can do that asynchronously and autonomously as well using our friend GitHub Copilot. So we'll see if that's possible. I've not tried this before, so we're going to try this together. But yeah, we're going to use coding agent. We're going to give it a issue, like a prompt via an issue, and then we're going to see what happens when it tries to add this new feature with Superbase and the code base. So how does this work? So you can get it to do any GitHub repository as long as you've got it on GitHub. I'm going to find my Prompt Frenzy GitHub repo and look at the issues tab. So this is the code that we developed last time. I've made a couple of minor changes since the last video, but it's just been visual bug fixing really. But this next one is going to be more of a bigger feature that we're going to add. And the way it works is you add a GitHub issue, describing the feature you want or describing the bug fix or the documentation, whatever it is. And then you can assign it to GitHub Copilot. There's a couple of things you need to check first. So you need to be paying for GitHub right now. Let's see what the pricing model is. I believe it is, here we go, GitHub Pro Plan and pricing. Or maybe it's this one. Let's try this one. Yeah, here we go. So you get basic features of Copilot for free now. Some of you may be subscribed to Pro, but if you want to use the agent, because it's in preview, you need to upgrade to this Pro Plus tier, which I've done already. The second thing you have to do is go into settings, and I think it's under coding agents. Yeah. So you can select to give it access to all repositories, or I think you can also manage it on a repository basis. So if we go back into the settings on this repository, I think we'll find, GitHub coding agent here. And this is where you can manage MCP servers as well. Like I said, we're going to try adding the Superbase MCP server and see if it's able to interact with that. So that's where we'll set up that, and then we'll also create the issue here and assign it to Copilot. So, right, so I've explained the issue, or I've explained the feature. We're going to add this image transition or this image slider. I'm going to do my best to stay out of any code. I don't want to touch any code ideally, because I just want to see how good it is at doing this. I have tested a couple of other small features through Copilot, and it had some success. There were a couple of issues with images, like changing images. It doesn't seem to be able to do that. But it's interesting. It's definitely a interesting thing to try out. And the good thing is, it has its own environment. So whereas on Cursor or Claude Code, you'll always be spinning up environments on your machine or using your setup. With Copilot's agent, it has a completely separate environment. So it will try and build things itself. It will try and run builds itself. It will use resources itself, which is great, but it also has downsides because it means that it's operating behind a firewall. It's not able to access a lot of the internet. So you just bear that in mind when you're building these things or asking for these features. There are limitations. I would also recommend reading this because there are some things that there are definitely some best practices, and I don't know all of them. I've only used this very briefly, but there's certainly some things you can do to improve things. Acceptance criteria, like having a list of things that the agent needs to do in order to complete the task, is a good idea, I think. But yeah, following good practices or best practices in terms of GitHub is probably a good idea here. If you're familiar with the whole issues and pull request system in Git, then you should already have a head start here. If you've already worked in development teams, you'll almost certainly be familiar with this. And this allows you to use Copilot more as like a member of your team. So I can see this being very useful for maybe larger teams. If you have a simple task or your junior developer is off sick, then you could potentially assign this to Copilot, and they could fix an issue for you. So let's get started. I think the first step actually is to set up the Superbase MCP server, because we won't be able to make this change without access. I'm hoping that this means that the MCP server can edit or run SQL on this database, but I guess we'll find that out. Let's check how this works. So like I said, you can change settings in the GitHub repo, and you can change the Copilot settings for this repository. So we have this format, and I think we have an example in the docs. Let me check that. Right, so here's the format we need. So the next question is, what is the Superbase setup? Superbase MCP server. That's what I was looking for. And let's find the format. Here it is. Okay, so it looks like we're going to need a personal access token. So let's set that up first. Let's go to Superbase personal access token. We're going to generate an access token here in our account. Generate new token, and let's call it prompt frenzy test. I'll delete this after the video, so don't even try. Okay, success. We've got a token. So what I'm going to do is next, we will copy this structure. We're going to go over to GitHub. Let's go to settings again, coding agent. This is the one. Okay. So now we've got the templates set up, and we're going to access it. We're going to access the MCP server using our new token. Let's copy that, paste it in here, and save. Schema validation failed. You must have required property tools. Interesting. Okay. Let's check the format again. Right. Okay. It looks like there should be this tools formats. Not sure why we didn't have that. So let's add that underneath. See if that works. Yeah. Okay. Let me just double check the Superbase setup. Yeah, there's no mention of tools here, which is interesting. But let's try this and see what happens. We can always come back and update it. So in theory now, this should work. So now we can go back to our issues and let's try creating an issue for this. I'm going to use ChatGPT, just the desktop client, to generate this using the voice mode. So let's just describe the issue to ChatGPT and tell them that we want a GitHub issue. I want you to help me create a GitHub issue. Please use best practices when creating an issue, including things like acceptance criteria. We want to extend our website promptfrenzy.com with a new feature. The feature should allow the user to submit multiple, or in this case 2, but potentially more in the future, image URLs, so that if there are 2, we can create a before and after effect. The reason for this is on many of these prompts, there will be 2 images, the before image and the after image. And when we're showing a card on the homepage or the main view, when you click through on a card, we want the user to be able to see both the before and after images, and there to be a vertical slider between the 2 images, so that the user can drag that slider left and right to show more or less of the before and after images. This may require a database update, so please use the Superbase MCP server tools if you need to. And what else? That's pretty much it. So when submitting a new prompt, we will need to extend the existing input form so that it's possible to add multiple image URLs. And then on the homepage, when we see that the post has exactly 2 image URLs, we'll know that it's a before and after prompt, and we will add that JavaScript slider so the user can see both images and slide between the 2. Okay, that's our prompt. Let's see what ChatGPT comes up with for this issue. What I like to use the ChatGPT voice to text, because it just means less typing, and it means I can ramble like I do, and I don't need to type it all out. So this is what it's come up with: before and after image slider for promptfrenzy.com. That's the issue title. It's given me some background, scope, and acceptance criteria. It looks like. Let me just wait for this to finish generating. You can type this out. You don't need to use ChatGPT to generate this, but I think you'll probably get better results if you structure this in a way that is going to work with. If you structure it in a way that is more GitHub friendly, that would be my guess. But anyway, let me copy and paste this in here so you can see. So we've got the backgrounds. We want to extend this so that users can submit 2 image URLs when a prompt has exactly 2 images on the homepage. Yeah, okay, this is looking good. I'm not going to go through all of this in detail, but I'm optimistic. And we've got this acceptance criteria. Prompt submission, 2 image URLs. Form validation works. Image URLs are stored in Superbase in a way that supports, So you could also generate this issue from your IDE. Like, for example, Cursor, it has access to the code base, so you probably would get a better issue if you asked the agent to generate this in Cursor, but I'm trying to do this outside of an IDE. I'm trying not to look at any code. So I'm hoping that this will work too. So let's create this issue. Great. And let's see what happens. Interesting. It's suggested a React.js slider library for this before and after thing. I've not seen that, not tried that before. So let's see what happens. So now, once you've set up Copilot on your GitHub repo and you've set up your subscription, you can now assign this to Copilot. And what will happen is you'll probably get some kind of, yeah, there you go. You've got a little eyes emoji telling you that Copilot has seen it, and Copilot will start working in the background, spinning up its environment, and start to make pull requests or a pull request and various commits in the background. It will follow best practices, which a lot of human coders will not. So that's a good thing, and makes for, I can see the potential for this, because whereas if you're just a developer vibe coding in your IDE, if you're just using Claude Code or Cursor or whatever, then everything is synchronous and it's more difficult to do other things. You need to keep an eye on it, right? Whereas with this, it's acting more like an existing team would, where you have different people assigned to different tasks. You have people working on the same code base at the same time. So I can see this being really useful for not only individual vibe coders, but also teams who are trying to manage larger code bases. And of course, if this fails and we're not happy with the output, we can just delete this pull request, we can reject it, no harm done. Whereas if you're vibe coding on the project, it's potentially more difficult to do that. Obviously, if you're following good practices and you're using Git properly, then it's still possible to do that. But yeah, the point is, this is, I think, more of a future-facing approach, because it allows agents to work on the same code base without as much overhead, and I guess it's setting the scene for you as a developer or builder or whatever you are to take a step back and maybe focus on the higher level things. I think a natural next step for this would be to create some kind of senior developer, or you as a developer could act as a senior developer, create the issues, assign them to different agents, and then you wait for them to come back with whatever they're doing. So we should see after a while we get some more content on here. You can see now on this issue, Copilot has linked a pull request. So we can now go into this pull request and see what's happening. And this is great as well, because you can see exactly what's happening in this issue. You've got the history, and we can see any issues, which it looks like there is already one. So let's take a look at what's happened. So it created a plan. Because I've got Vercel integrated, it is automatically deploying these updates on a separate branch. So that's another great thing, is we can check the deployed version of the website and try it out ourselves before we accept any pull requests and merge it into main. So you can effectively have multiple different versions of the website. Maybe you're familiar with this already if you're also working on a team using Vercel, but being able to view different deployments is a very powerful feature, I think, especially if you don't want to touch any code. So Copilot has encountered an internal error. Interesting. Okay, I think this will be the MCP stuff. Let's see if we can find out. Not a lot of help there. So let's just try a couple of things. If we can't get MCP working, it's not the end of the world. I'm hoping that we can do this anyway, and maybe Copilot will just tell me what to do, the SQL to run, because you can communicate with Copilot during this process, much as you would a regular developer. You can comment and you can talk to them. And the beauty of this as well is that if Copilot needs more information, it will ask you, and you don't have to respond immediately. So whereas in Cursor, you would have to sit there and wait for the response, or you'd have to go away and do something and then come back. This will just alert you and you get a notification, and then you can provide more information or recommend a change. So it's more flexible, I think. And it's not all done locally. So you can be going for coffee and you can just check your GitHub app on the go. So anyway, let's double check the docs again. Okay, let's just try removing it for now, and we will see what happens. So I wonder if we can, no, we can't roll this back. I'm just gonna have to remove everything in here for now and save. Okay, and then we'll go back to our pull requests and we'll say, I have a feeling that the MCP server configuration was wrong. I removed it for now. Please try again. Always got to be nice to your agents because they might be your boss one day. Let's comment. And then let's wait and see what happens. Again, we get the eyes emoji. That's a nice feature, I think. Copilot has started work, and we can follow along by clicking view session, which is useful if you actually want to see what's happening. Obviously, you don't need to do this. But let's wait and see if we get any further with this one. Okay, so we're definitely getting somewhere now. I strongly suspect that the MCP server was causing the problems. But maybe we'll try that again afterwards. Let's see how far we get without it. So it spins up the environment. It checks the requirements, and it needs to spend a bit of time getting familiar with like what is actually going on in this code base. So it's understanding that we're using TypeScript and Tailwind CSS. It's looking at the current structure of the pages, and I think it's trying to find, well, it's looking at the database structure, which is good. And it's also looking at the prompt card component, which is the thing that renders these prompt cards, which is also good. That's the correct place to look. So you'd be familiar with this, I think, if you've used any kind of coding agent before. The only difference is this is happening in a separate environment, and it's all available on github.com. And I'm hoping that obviously we're not going to be able to ignore code completely, but this is going in the direction of developers acting more as, I guess, higher level, maybe not touching code all of the time and only going in if they need to fix specific things or do something a little bit more complicated. But a lot of the time you'll be just setting requirements and setting the framework for the agent to then go in and do the coding. It's got this list of tasks: analyze current code base structure, update database schema, update TypeScript, create before and after image slider. So here's the plan that it set out. So it's made a good start, I think. It's creating the slide bar component. It's updating the submit form to handle multiple URLs. That's correct. Need to update the form UI to show the fields. Okay, so let's wait a bit longer and see how far we get. So far so good. This is the central issue I think it's going to come across. It says, now I need to create a database migration to add the image URLs column. Since I don't have direct access to the Superbase database, I'll create a migration SQL file. So this is good, actually. I was hoping it would do this. It would be better, obviously, to have the MCP server working so it could run these SQL commands itself. But if we just look at the prompts table here, we can see the issue is that there's only, only one image URL field. So I don't know how it's going to handle that, whether it's going to create another table for images or create another structure. but let's see. If it does come up with something crazy, then one thing we can do is it accepts screenshots as well, like you'd expect. So we could screenshot this this schema. Although I think there is a schema file, so it should be able to understand it already. But yeah, you can use screenshots, you can use images. Just be aware that it's limited by what it can access on the internet. So if you're pasting URLs or image URLs, it may struggle to access them because of the firewall restrictions. And this is probably not the fastest way of working, right? So if you're doing this yourself in your IDE and you're familiar with vibe coding, you could probably vibe code this faster. This is not the fastest version, but it's probably more flexible in many ways. I'm not 100% sure yet. I'm still testing this out, but yeah, it's definitely got potential. Okay, so it says completed implementation. It took just over 9 minutes. Let's see what's happened. Database schema updates. It's added a before and after slider components. It's enhanced the form. It's updated the UI, data handling, key feature. I'm not going to go through all of this. This looks promising. The only remaining step is for the repository owner to run the database migration provided in docs before and after. Okay. So let's go back to the pull request, and we should see that this final comment is added. So yeah, here. This is the comment that you would see if you were just viewing the PR. And we can potentially view the deployment here. I'm not going to do that yet. I'm going to check the data migration file. And I'm going to try running this on Superbase. So yeah, docs before and after. We should see some SQL here. Yeah, here we go. So let me copy this SQL and add it. So let's just quickly check what it's doing. Alter table prompts. It's going to add an image URLs, which is a text array. Okay, interesting. Let me copy this and go over to the, obviously you'd want to make sure you're checking any SQL that gets, that you add, because you don't want to be copy and pasting dodgy SQL into a production database. This is a test, so we're just going to run this directly in Superbase. Let's run that. Okay, nice. So if we go back to the table editor and look at prompts, we should now see that the image URL has changed. Doesn't look like it's changed. Let me check the... Yeah, I don't know why that didn't work. Let's try running that again. Syntax error. Okay, I didn't see that error. Yeah, it copied some comments over for some reason. I think it tried to add this comment into the SQL. Anyway, so that's run. Let's double check the structure now. We should have image URL and image URLs. Okay, so this is the text array. So it looks like the new format would be this. So we're storing image URLs as a text array. Fine. Okay. Let's go back to the pull request. And this is the bit that one of the pieces I really like about this is because we've got Vercel configured to be connected to this GitHub repo. Let me just briefly show you this. So I'm in the Prompt Frenzy Vercel, and under settings, you can set this repository connection. So it's connected to our GitHub repo. Once you've set that up, any changes that are made by the coding agent will be deployed to a separate branch, and you can view the deployment. So you can see here, Vercel deployed to preview 4 minutes ago. You can view the deployment and see the changes that it's made. So we should now be able to log in and Let me just test this. We should be able to log in and create a 2-image selection. Okay, it's added like a before image and an after image. Not necessarily what the kind of UI I would have chosen here, but this should work for a test. So let me find an example of this. Okay, here's a good example. So this is an example where you input the album cover and the prompt is reimagine the album cover using zombies instead, and you get this, which is a zombie version of the album cover. So this is like a fun way of inputting an image and a prompt and getting an output image. So I'm hoping that we can just copy the image address here. This is the before for the sound of music, and let's find our input form, before image URL, see if it works. Interesting. Okay, so we're getting a foreign key constraint here. So what I'm going to do is I'm trying to avoid jumping into a code editor. So let's pull this. Let's see if we can find this error that I can copy. Superbase error. Yeah, so this is the error that we're seeing. Let me copy the content of this, and we will tell Copilot that we found this error. Can you provide some SQL to fix this issue? So actually we should be able to just try this submission again, see what happens. And yeah, we had a success this time. Let's see what happens. So let's just close our developer tools. So it looks like, okay, so we've got the slider on the view. Maybe we don't have it on the submission. No, okay, so it's not added it to the original, but it has added it to the detail page when you click through. And this looks pretty good. Obviously there's no actual images, which I think could be an issue with the image files. Okay, so I think it's now working. What I did was just I had to download the files to Dropbox and then copy them across to Dropbox and then use that URL, because I think the Reddit systems probably block external use of those image URLs. So here we can have a look. Yeah, this is kind of what we wanted. There are definitely things that could be tweaked, like the positioning of the before. But this is a good start. I'm a bit disappointed that there's no way to toggle this on the homepage. So I was hoping to have a slider on the before screen as well. But yeah, this is a good start. I'm going to now go back to GitHub and let's take a look at that pull request. And we can see that this is the latest from GitHub. We were browsing this deployment on Vercel, like I said. If we wanted to, we can now merge this into main. So it says it's ready to review. It's failing merge requirements because we need to review it first. Once we've reviewed it, let's just merge it, confirm merge. And then it will update the main branch. It will merge it across the main branch. And I think it automatically, yeah, there you go. It automatically closes the issue and the pull request. And then if we check our Vercel page, we should see on the deployments, we are building this latest one automatically. Check the build logs. Once this goes through, it will update the main branch, which is linked to promptfrenzy.com. And we've deployed this new feature. So obviously this it didn't work quite as I'd expected. It was a little bit more convoluted. I think maybe the mistake was trying to do database updates, and this is maybe a slightly more complex feature. I think personally I would have rather done this in cursor at this stage, but if it was smaller, let me just check the promptfrenzy.com. Let's see if we've got these listed. Yeah, there we go. We've got this before and after feature. Nice. Okay. There's definitely some fixing and some tweaking that needs to be done, but it's a start. And I think that if you were managing like a team, or if you were asking for multiple features at the same time, what I might do is to create a list of issues, and then the simpler ones assign it to Copilot, and the more complex ones maybe assign to a developer, or do myself. But there's definitely promise. What I'll do is I'll try and get this working with the MCP server in the background, and if I succeed with that, I'll make another video. But this was a good first test, and I'd be interested to see what your guys' thoughts are if anyone's using this in a different way. And I'm excited for the future of this, like I said, because this is the first step, I think, towards having a team of agents working on the same project, and for the humans to take a step back from the code and to act more like a project manager or senior developer role, and directing and merging and all of that kind of stuff. So thanks for watching, and yeah, I'll see you in the next one.